You're listening to Pixelated Audio, episode 130, expansion pack 26. All right, and welcome back to Pixelated Audio. This is expansion pack 26, episode 130, and we're back together again virtually because we're still doing our social distancing. But I'm excited. Today we have an expansion pack for you guys again, and kind of a really dumb theme, but we're going to roll with it.
Yeah, we are here at 6 years of Pixelated Audio, so we decided to go very literally with that theme of tracks that are the sixth in the game or have six in the title or something like that. I have no idea what track you just played. Actually, it was awesome, but I'm racking my brain.
Yeah,
I can't figure it out.
I mean, you might have heard of the series before. I doubt you've played it. In fact, I could just bet all my money that you've never played it. It's from a game called Rance. Series very well loved in Japan. It's an adult kind of eroge game, and that track was titled Battle. This was released on Windows in 2004 in Japan, and then also for some reason Chile, and developed and published by Alice Soft, composed by Dragon Attack with an exclamation point. Yeah, this is a long-running series. It's a role-playing game where it's probably one of the oldest running erotic games in Japan still. The first installment was released in 1989, and the last game, Rance X, was released just 2018. There might have been something after that, but I think 2018 is the most recent one. But the series follows this character Rance as he saves a bunch of different kingdoms and defeats demons, and there's obviously a whole a sexual factor that makes its way in there somehow. But the game actually looks, aside from that, looks pretty cool. Like the strategy and stats in the battle system look pretty good. And this game it's technically the sixth. It's like the title is the sixth, but it's like the eighth kind of installment because
side games and I've seen this kind of thing. Yeah.
They even have like Rance 6 plus 5D and there's 5 different 6 games. But anyways, what did you think of the track?
I loved it. I thought it was an ease track. It's got that classic high energy J-rock.
Totally.
Yeah. A little bit more different kind of a series than I usually play, though. But
well, yeah, and it's cool because this was released in 2004, but it really kind of harkens back to a lot of the tease music style stuff from the early 90s.
Oh, definitely.
And Dragon Attack. I don't know the artist's real name. I didn't dig too deep into it, but I do know of this artist because of Alice Soft. And Alice Soft, they had a little sound unit. It wasn't that big, but they created it in 1991. It was heavily involved in the Rance series, and they did all of the music for Alice Soft and the series. Past members were Shade and Nay, and these are all aliases, but they were in different sound groups and stuff like that, and doujin groups. Currently, or as of this game, Alice Soft sound unit had Dragon Attack, that also goes by the alias Ikazuchi Maru, and DJ C++. So only 2 people in the group as of this game, but it really does hold a love letter to some of the early PC Engine CD, tease music kind of stuff.
I normally I listen pretty rapidly to that stuff, but it's so deep down like the internet rabbit hole that I have no idea who any of these people are. But I gotta say, their music's great. They keep up the good work.
Yeah. It was interesting about this game because I did a little bit of research. We try to keep the research light for these expansion packs, but like I was kind of curious about like some of the history of the series because I mean obviously it's selling copies because it is an adult game, but there's a lot of adult games out there. So why is this one doing so well? And I think because it actually has some substance behind it, not just trying to bank on that sex aspect, right? So it has a whole engine that's built around it, and then a lot of games use it. It's called the System 4 Adult Game Engine, and there's a whole adult game engine built around this. It's kind of like that.
It's like Unity, but for adult games.
Exactly, and so it really focuses on less on the animation side, more on like high res display and being able to get the characters front and center when they're talking and dialogue. It's very relationship building and stuff too. So they really try to put those high res characters up and center a lot. So
what I found when doing this episode is 6 in a series is kind of like it's a weird sort of point. It's either the series has run its course if it's made it that far, which was is probably pretty successful, and they either have to like abandon ship or basically rethink what are we doing. We keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Or they've jumped the shark. Yeah, no, I noticed that too. So I started going through a lot of titles that were 6th series, and I got some ones that don't necessarily fit the bill, but yeah, most of the stuff is like later on in life, so you don't have a lot of really, really old stuff because at this point there wasn't even enough time to get that much stuff out. So you didn't have 6th installments in the series. I mean, even you look at stuff like Mega Man 6, that was out in the mid 90s, or early 90s, right? So
yeah, the earliest ones are like King's Quest 6, and even that was I think 92.
Space Quest 6, yeah, they're really early games, but they're still late in the whole scheme of things, right?
Pretty much, yeah. So this kind of, for my picks, generally trend towards the mid to late 90s and early 2000s. I don't know if yours do as well.
Yeah, mine, I have some that I'm reaching back into, but yeah, most of mine I want to say. Most of the stuff that I started with was like post 2000, and then I dug a little bit deeper, and then I found one that I've been meaning to play forever, so I might do that one next. But what do you got lined up? All
right, so here is we talk about 6th in a series. I've got 6th 2 times over from Mega Man X6. We've got Commander Yammark's theme.
All right, let's take a listen.
That was Commander Yammark from Mega Man X6, composed by Naoto Tanaka, also known as Akemi Kimura. Oh man, I have so many things to say about Mega Man X6. Most of them bad, but the music is the real key high point of this soundtrack, or of this game for sure.
That was a really great track. Not too much leaning on the action side of things, which is kind of juxtaposed to what we would expect from a Mega Man track. But I really like this one. Yeah, it's really good.
The Mega Man series has always been kind of a weird, like, everybody associates it with that heavy rock sound.
Well, that's because that's what it's iconic.
Oh, for sure.
Or that's the iconic sound, Anytime they try to departure from that, there's some almost uncomfortable, not uncomfortable, but like out of its element kind of feel to some of the tracks, right?
I totally get that. But one of the things that I really love about the series is that it runs for so long. I mean, there was Mega Man 1 through 8 before they had, the retro remakes of 9 and 10, and then Mega Man X through X6, which were the side-scrolling games, and then 7 and 8 were kind of weird 3D ones. But the series runs so long that they're kind of just go nuts with the music. The tracks that people remember are really the upbeat rock ones, but even Mega Man 5 and 6 have some more, I wouldn't call them experimental, but more adventurous music in them compared to 1 through 3 for sure. But the reason why I picked X6 was
because 6 in the title.
Well, for sure. But the reason why I picked X6 instead of 6 is I was thinking about it. This is a game that came out in 2001 in both Japan and the US, so it's super late for a PS1 game. And it is well-deservedly just not a well-received game. I loved X4. I think that was kind of the high point of the PlayStation games. X5 was okay, but it was starting to show its age, and X6 was just bad all the way through. I have a really embarrassing game FAQs review where, this is almost 20 years ago. I'm like, why don't you just get better at the game? But, looking at it without just being obsessed with the series like I was at the time, it's bad. It's random number generators are working against you at all times. There's a boss that you can't beat unless you have the exact weapon. The kind of stuff that should not be happening 12, 15 games into the Mega Man series. So... Commander Yammark is one of the first bosses that you fight. How every Mega Man game has the boss sequence where you kind of find the easiest boss to kill and then you find what is their weapon good against. This is usually one of the two that I started with because I don't like to come back to this one too much, but it sticks in your memory because it's an early stage that's relatively easy. The music's pretty good. The boss isn't too hard. I
got to be honest. I played up till 4, so X5 and X6 I have not really played.
You didn't miss anything.
I maybe dabbled in them at some point. I'm sure I did. I couldn't have just not played them. That seems weird for this point in my life, but I don't remember anything about it, to be honest. I'm looking at some screenshots right now. I'm just none of this looks familiar.
Yeah, I just rebought the Mega Man X collections for the Xbox One. I think, it's X1 through X4 and then X5 through X8. And the 1 through 4 collection is great all the way through. And then the X5 through X8 just gets progressively more frustrating. So I don't recommend it at all. But let me talk a little bit about the composer since we haven't mentioned him yet. So Naoto Tanaka used to work for Capcom. He's probably best known for his work on the Mega Man series and the Ace Attorney series, actually. He started initially with Capcom working on the Rockman Complete Works series. So if you guys don't know those, they re-released the original Mega Man 1 through 6 on PlayStation 1. And a lot of times they would feature rearranged soundtracks or menu music, things like that. And after the success there, he was given the lead composer role on Mega Man X5 and X6. And he started going by the alias Akemi Kimura for the rest of his time at Capcom, I guess, which was X6, 7, and 8. And he also went on to work for Platinum Games, where he's worked on Mad World, Bayonetta, Max Anarchy. And I mentioned that he worked on the Ace Attorney series. He actually worked on the original trilogy for Game Boy Advance before it was even localized in America. So, yeah, 2001, I think, is when those came out. The first one.
Yeah, I want to say around then, yeah.
Yeah, so I really like his style a lot. I think he was pretty heavily involved in those games, and people love the Ace Attorney music. And this game gets slapped on again for good reason, but the music deserves a little bit of a highlight.
The Ace Attorney soundtrack got a complete orchestral rendition. They did a whole event based on it, Ace Attorney and Lunar and stuff like that. And so yeah, I mean it's clearly a big deal because they had a whole symphony go out and do it.
Oh yeah, I saw the reference to that. I don't know how involved he was, if it was just his original compositions, but yeah, that must have been a big deal.
Yeah, so I mean,
Mega Man X6, man, what can I say? Great music, bad game.
Cool. I mean, the graphics look good.
Don't let it fool you, man. Just don't ever try it out. You will be
like a mighty number 9.
If you want to throw your controller, by all means. I don't really have the energy for that kind of stuff anymore.
Nah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other stuff on my bucket list, so I'll save my frustration for something else. All right, you ready to move on?
I am. What you got next?
All right, so this one is something this is a track I've really been wanting to play for a long time. I never could figure out how to weasel it into an episode. It's called, and it's kind of experimental here, so bear with me, but it's there's something about it I just love. It's called The Last Day, and this was from a series of discs called the 100 Yen discs that came out by a doujin group named Onion Soft. So let's take a listen. This was composed by Kamitama. All right, that was The Last Day, composed by Kamitama for the Hyakuen Disc 6 compilation from Onion Soft. And this came out in winter of 1989. So this is stretching back the farthest I could go for this episode. I was trying to find something sooner and it just didn't happen. But what'd you think?
Oh man, that bass just hits me so well.
I know.
Like that, it's so good.
I know. I've been trying to think of an excuse to play this track for over a year now, and I just could never figure out how to wiggle it into an episode. But then I was like, oh, it's right. It's from the 6th volume of the Hyakuen series, so
it counts.
Perfect. It counts. Well, no. So here's the thing. So You might be asking yourself, Brian, why didn't you put this in a a music disc series or something like that? Well, it's actually a game. So while it is part of like the doujin scene, it very much falls into the game category here, because these were, even though they were done by a doujin group, they were out mainly for people to experience the game. That being said, I mean, they were essentially an interactive music disc. So they still relied pretty heavily on the music, because the music was kind of like maybe the best part of it. The games were, I mean, they were kind of clones of other existing games, not really too impressive. Some of them kind of were, like there were some like Asteroids clones that were actually pretty neat. This is all for the PC-88. So you really were limited on what you could do with scrolling and stuff anyway. So they did have some impressive parts to them. Not all of these Hyakuen discs have the most amazing music, but some of them are pretty stellar. The thing about this series, which is interesting too, is that they have kind of a subtitle for this game, which is cattle mutilation.
What?
And that, yeah, so the whole point of this game is you fly this spaceship around and kind of try to abduct cattle. That's like in this blue. I'll have to show you a screenshot. We'll post something on our in our show notes so you guys can check it out. But anyways, yeah, you abduct cattle and then you drop them and they fall upside down. Essentially, that's the mutilation, I guess. But you have to do all of that. You have to get all of the cattle to beat the level. And this isn't the first game they've done that is like this, by the way. This is like the third installment of the cattle mutilation series.
So wait, what is this a clone of then? Or what is it most similar to? If you can even think of anything, because like you said that they made a lot of clones.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily, I mean, it's an original idea, but kind of like a mechanic clone of something like, I'm trying to think of like one of those Invader games where maybe like a choplifter almost.
Okay.
Yeah, where you have to like pick up you rescue the guys and move around on this kind of 2D plane with different slopes and stuff like that.
Oh, is it at all like, did you ever play Sopwith on DOS back in the day?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you fly a little biplane and you have
to like... It's a lot like that.
You got to bomb, in that one you got to bomb like buildings and tanks and stuff, but yeah.
Yes, it's a lot like Sopwith. And so, look, the game is, there's nothing really like spectacular about it. The whole idea was these were Hyakuen, so like you could buy them for a coin, which essentially was how much it cost to play an arcade game anyway. So get a disc with some awesome music on it. And I think they sold these exclusively at Comiket. We talked about that before. Kamitama, I don't know his or her real name. They were part of Onion Soft's Doujin group, essentially doing all of these music discs, but very well known. We talked about Kamitama, I want to say... You remember our episode with Kajihara, with Kaja?
I listened to, yeah. That was a while back, but...
Yeah, it was a long time ago, but like, he mentioned that he was... there was a software that he was using when he first started composing. It was called Split, and for PC-88, and he just wasn't happy, and so that's why he created his own music driver. But Split was done by Kamitama, so this is that guy. So you can tell this guy has masterful use of the chip, because he's written his own driver for it, right? So
especially solid for 89. Like I was expecting that to be a little bit later, like mid 90s, but no, it's some good work for sure.
There's some good stuff, and this is 6th in the series, and so like I said, there's some really good stuff. In fact, I think in some of the earlier discs, Yuzo Koshiro has a track peppered in there, or Kajihara has a few tracks peppered in there. So it would be a good thing for us to go through at some point, the Hyakuen disc collection. I think we just gave ourselves another job to do now. So, it's a really good one to go through, I think so.
No, I think so. I really enjoy the music discs because it's a little bit of a different, like, I don't know, people can have music that's like, this is the music that would be if it was a game, but they don't have to. If they can, it's just like, here's music that I'm making,
It was directly, and the whole reason why doing the music disc was interesting is because like a lot of those guys had direct influence on the gaming scene and the PC gaming scene in Japan. And so like without those doujin groups, none of this stuff would be where it's at. And so, and I'm not just talking about the Hyakuin disc. I'm talking about a lot of gaming in Japan came from these kids just essentially getting on their computers and doing it. And so this is like really reaching back into like the nitty gritty of the early days of Japanese PC gaming for sure.
Yeah, I love hearing about indie game development. I know they don't call it quite the same thing in Japan, but I feel like that's probably the closest.
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere. You get with your friends, you make some games, and then, hey, I'm making money making these games, and then you're the director of some like large company eventually.
and then you start playing Rance.
Yeah, that's just your spare time.
Anyways, let's move on to our next track. What do you got, man?
All right, so this is a bit of an impromptu quiz, Brian. So, 6th game in the series.
Rance 6.
No, this is the 6th game in a series. The 6th installment was on the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom.
Derby Stallion 6.
No, it's a famous Japanese RPG series.
E6.
That wasn't on Super Nintendo, was it?
I know. No.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just randomly spouting them off.
I'm going to keep going until you get closer to it.
Final Fantasy 6.
It's one of the other two, big three. It's actually the most distant one. I'm going to spare you the details. This is from Wizardry 6.
Oh.
Bane of the Cosmic Forge. Yeah.
I almost picked something from Wizardry 6, but like from the Macintosh version.
This is the title track, also called Bane of the Cosmic Forge, composed by Kentaro Haneda. All right, that was the title theme from Wizardry 6, Bane of the Cosmic Forge, released on the Super Famicom in September of 95 and composed by Kentaro Haneda. What do you think?
This is a good one, man. I like it. I wouldn't say this is like the best kind of stuff to just listen to out of context, but it does make me really want to go back and play Wizardry again. It's been a very long time for me, and I do like the series.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time, right? The idea that we can have all sorts of genres. And I feel like I wanted to throw in something a little bit more outside of what we usually play. And I really like classical music, and I couldn't devote an entire show to it, but I felt like this was a good one to highlight. Now, the Wizardry series, people probably know, has been running for many, many years. It started, I think, in the mid-'80s. But for whatever reason, and I'm sure historical podcasts can go into it, it just like took off like a rocket in Japan, and kind of like Koichi Sugiyama of Dragon Quest, Kentaro Haneda was the composer for the series basically for about 20 years. So it's like he's not as well known of the three big Japanese RPG series, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and Wizardry. This is definitely the least well known, but similar kind of pedigree. And Haneda is a really interesting guy, actually. We'll talk about him in a sec, but yeah.
I think that the Wizardry series has a different... a different audience than Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy and stuff, right?
Oh yeah, first-person dungeon crawlers that are very brutally hard.
and also, there's a lot of music that just wouldn't make sense for this kind of game either. So I think that what he is putting into the game actually is very fitting for this style. And like I said, it might not be the best music to listen to out of context, but it does really, really fit in the game, and it gets you excited to be a part of that kind of world, even though it's, treacherous and kind of grotesque at times.
Yeah. I think the Wizardry series definitely has it's a Western series originally, so that Western classical music flair makes a lot of sense for it. And actually, it's kind of funny because a lot of the original versions either have no music or very minimal music because they were so early. But like the trick was they basically took it, remade it for NES, Super Nintendo, added music, and that was like enough to make it become this mainstay. And you'll still see stuff like Etrian Odyssey these days that have built off of it, and there's still lots of Japanese dungeon crawlers, but this is the kind of like the quintessential series that started off the trend of Japanese love of first-person dungeon crawlers. So nice. Let me go ahead and talk about Kentaro Haneda a little bit. So he's an interesting guy, or he was, unfortunately. He was a classically trained composer and arranger. He worked on anime, video games, movies, that sort of thing. He's famous for the Super Dimension Fortress Macross, the Wizardry series, and the Grand Symphony Yamato. So he's a lot like Sugiyama in that he was like professional composer and arranger for orchestra before he started in video games. He started working, I believe, on his first game was Wizardry 1 on the Nintendo somewhere in 1988. Wow. He continued to work on orchestral scores. And in 89, he arranged a symphonic version of the game Sorcerian, and one of the pioneers of orchestral game music. And in 93, he did one for the Ys game series. Unfortunately, he passed away at 58 in the year 2007. So he's kind of been on my mind because I'm always really interested in the lives of the composers that have passed away. But I really like his style, but it's a little bit harder to put in a full show. So I've been kind of thinking how we might do that if we do end up talking about him.
I think it could work. I think just like the game, I think that music in context works. And I think combining it with these expansion packs are just kind of so all over the place. It's really hard to be comfortable with listening to like a classical music track in them when you've just heard something that is like face melting right before it. So they're not really coherent in that sense. So maybe in an actual dedication episode, having a lot of the same like music together would be a lot more appropriate.
Yeah, and the stuff especially towards the PlayStation 1 is really good. Like there's remakes of what is it called? Wizardry 1 through 5, which didn't fit because there was no remake of 6 on the PlayStation 1, but the music there is really fantastic. Check it out. They're kind of hard to find too. Like the credits are a little all over the place, and they're really, really rare PS1 games, but the music's worth checking out for sure. All
right, so you ready for my next track here?
I am, yeah. What you got?
So you just played an SNES track, and I'm going to keep with the SNES here with Hokuto no Ken 6, Gekitou Denshouken, Haou heno michi. So let's take a listen. This is Falco's theme. That was Falco's theme from Hokuto no Ken 6 on the Super Nintendo, released in 1992, developed by Shoei System and published by Toei Animation. And that was, I think, composed by Tomohisa Mitsuyasu. I am not 1,000% sure, but that's the best I could dig into it. I'm actually pretty sure, but I only found one source, and so I don't want to completely commit to that. But
whoa, love that track.
You did?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool, huh?
I didn't even think to look at the Hokuto no Ken or Fist of the North Star series.
Yes, yeah. These games were particularly bad and riddled with bugs. They were, kind of like Street Fighter 2, or in this one is kind of like a Street Fighter 2 thing. But, I thought, regardless of that, the music is pretty notable, and the game looks okay, I guess, I think it just plays like garbage. So, yeah, I thought this was super rocking. I was going through some of the Hokuto no Ken stuff. This one just kind of stood out to me. It's just a kind of energizing, kind of like you're about to kick some butt track. So, yeah, worked.
I haven't played it, but I know there's essentially a Yakuza game with the Fist of the North Star characters for PS4. I really want to pick that up. Because
nice.
it's Yakuza, so you solve people's problems and beat people up, except with faces exploding.
That's my type of game.
So,
no, that sounds awesome.
I don't know much about the series other than it looks like a lot of fun, just the comic series, the anime, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's strange because SNES music, that's where I got the pack for this. It says they don't know who the composer is, but when I looked up my Japanese sources, it was pretty clear. That's why I want to at least say, it's a quote unquote Tomohisa Mitsuyasu. But I mean, it makes sense because he was pretty much in charge of all of the music for this series, from the NES all the way up to the Super NES. So that makes sense. He's also the leader of a rock band called Jaywalk. No, if you've heard of them. Founded in 1980. No,
I have not. But I have noticed that a lot of these folks tend to stick around with the series.
Yeah, I mean, that's just their. It's probably just side cash for him. He was in a rock band. He's still an active guitarist today. Apparently, he's written a lot of their lyrics for that band. Most notably for this, there was a famous track that came out in Japan, well known, "Nanimo Ienaku de Natsu." It was a famous song. Apparently, I listened to it. It sounded all right. I mean,
I have no knowledge whatsoever, but there's hits in every country all over the world. So
yeah, sure,
more power to him. Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, this track was rocking, and he is a pretty awesome guitarist. So if you listen to Jaywalk, J-Walk, I think now it's J-A-Y Walk. So they actually changed the name somehow. But the original leader of the band had a really bad drug problem, and I don't know if OD'd or something, but Mitsuyasu took over and is now the leader of that group. So yeah, Fist of the North Star, everyone.
Play it. Watch it.
No, don't. Just watch it and just listen to the music and move on. All right, so I got one more after this. You have one more lined up?
I got two more. Well, so this will be my third
got
track.
Two more.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this one is a series I've talked about a lot. Randomly a lot, but the Jake Hunter series has been ever since I discovered it on the DS, I've kind of really gotten drawn in by the film noir kind of atmosphere. You're a detective. You're almost always solving murders. You hang out with the mob. You're this lone guy that smokes cigarettes to solve mysteries. Well, that's at the end of every chapter, you try to piece together all the puzzle stuff.
I love it, dude. I love it.
I do too. It's but the DS games were remakes of, I think, 1 through 4. The first 4 chapters, which were way back on the Famicom in the late 80s. And so they took a long break, and then they started them up again on the PS1. So the 6th story in the game, or the 6th game, is the PlayStation title. I'm going to butcher this. Tantei Jinguuji Saburo Yume no Owari ni, which means something like Jake Hunter at the end of the dream. Beautiful title. A lot of jazz. This is a very long track, but it's a really, really awesome one. So the track is titled Silent Shadow. right. That was from Tantei Jinguuji Saburo Yume no Owari ni, composed by Seiichi Atomic Hamada, also known as Daiichi Ace Hasemi. He goes by a lot of pseudonyms. And that track was Silent Shadow for PlayStation 1, and that was released in April of 1998, Japan only.
I thought this was so good. I mean, look, no surprise. Like the Jake Hunter soundtracks, like I've listened to a lot, and I really love this style of music. I have my mood that this puts me in, and when I start listening to the Jake Hunter soundtracks, I listen to them all, like pretty much like back to back. You know, and I just play it all day long. You know, like I keep the mood flowing, and I love this. This was great. That sax solo in there just totally like brought me to my knees. It was good.
Oh yeah. It was live. It was live performers. I don't have the credits on the CD, but like you can't do something like this with synthesized sound. But yeah, right. The series pretty much since the PlayStation 1 it's been going on for like 30 years. The last release just came out like 2019, I think. It's been going. Just think of it like as an episodic serial. Like the stories are pretty self-contained. It's always kind of the same sort of thing, a murder mystery or something happens and Jake has to figure out what's going on, and there's a lot of twists and turns in the dark underbelly of the city, and it's kind of like what's like a Law and Order, or it's one of those things that it's just like comfort food. Like you know exactly what you're getting when you play the games. You know,
I think that Japan especially really likes the murder mystery novels, like manga and anime and stuff like that. One way, I don't know if you've ever seen like Detective Conan. It's not necessarily murder mystery, but even for kids, they're really into like this kind of almost like, can you solve the problem yourself? They're putting the player and the character into this like the player and the character know the same amount of information. And so you're kind of really putting yourself in the same shoes. Like, how do I discover this? Same as the character who's experiencing it in the game. And so I think that's a really fun way to tell a story, you know, not just put the character in the same shoes, but like really like know nothing going in and learn everything at the same pace as the protagonist.
Yeah, movies too, but detective games work really well because in games a lot of times it's like, oh, I have amnesia for some reason. But this isn't a legitimate excuse to not know what's going on. So that's why they're such a popular, I don't know, whatever, you know, like any kind of media, the detective novel has been a mainstay for decades now. So I'm not at all surprised.
And the fact that it was so widely popular in Japan is what made it come here. I mean, I'm surprised we got it so late. Because
we did, it was like 2008 or 9 when we first got it.
Well, it was the DS was the first release, and this has been out for, you know, since the Famicom days, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what took so long, right? Like we have a lot of other garbage that came out of Japan that like never should have made its way anywhere outside of that country, but this never did. So I don't know.
Well, I think it's because the DS was doing so well that they're like, we can localize almost anything. We have this long running popular series in Japan. Actually, there's a short, funny story about that. The first release on DS was really bad, so they did like a do-over We're Sorry release that fixed it up. Like the localization was really poor, and they added some extra episodes. So make sure you get the one called Memories of the Past, I think is what it's called. But it's worth playing for sure. And they also had another one for 3DS that came out in 2016, Ghost of the Dusk.
Sad that's not that long ago.
Yeah,
but it was like they couldn't do a patch to it. They had to just release a new cartridge.
No, they could nowadays, but yeah, anyway. So I'm going to just go real quick through the composer. So Seiichi Hamada, because on my notes, I keep fumbling because it's a Seiichi Atomic Hamada. Yeah. He's a guitarist and sound designer. He's currently composed by a company called Act Age, and he plays the bass guitar. He started his career in 88 at Data East and was part of their sound team, Gamadelic. It was kind of like the house band, sort of like one of those other ones.
Oh yeah.
And he worked on Windjammers, Karnov's Revenge, did a lot of performing and arranging. He's pretty well known for his work on the Jake Hunter series. He's also,
I'd love to get him on.
I would
Seriously.
too. Yeah, his work's been really like, I listen to these soundtracks quite a lot when I'm trying to work and relax. He joined Sega in '99, worked on Shenmue. and did a lot of other stuff for M2, like Virtua Fighter 5, and some of the work he did for Work Jam and some, the ones that actually handled some of the later Jake Hunter series. And yeah, I don't know what else there is to say about him, but he is a killer rock musician and loves his jazz, and I'm definitely loving what he's putting down.
Nice. All right, we could go on Jake Hunter stuff all day long, but keep the pace, the pace going, you ready to move on?
Yeah, what you got as your last track of the day?
Yeah, my last track here is from 2015. And this is from a series that I really like. I really like the earlier games in the series. Have not played the later ones, but it's from Kenka Banchou 6, and this is Battle Boss. All right, that was the boss battle or battle boss. I'm not sure what the track names actually are, but this is from Kenka Banchou 6, Soul and Blood, composed by Salamander Factory. And they were a group from about 2000 to 2017, no longer a thing anyway. But this was developed and published by Spike Chunsoft for the 3DS in 2015. What did you think?
I thought it was a fun track. I was looking at this series. I'm not that familiar with it. I think I played one of them. There was like an English one on the PSP that I played for a hot second. But it is kind of a long-running series, but it's got pretty good music. I've kind of dug in here and there, and I really enjoyed this track.
I'm surprised it's still going, to be honest. I played the first one on PS2 many, many years ago, and I fell in love with it. This is before... I want to say this is like... either right before or right after I had just moved to Japan at that point, I think. And I played the first one and I was like, what is going on here? Why do these guys all have like afros and like electricity is going between their eyes? I didn't realize the culture at that time. But Kenka Banchou is like kind of a ruffian, like a gang, like a Japanese like kids gang.
They call them like delinquents, right?
Yeah, I mean they're delinquents, sure. Yeah. This is kind of like the Banchou is like the head of the delinquents or whatever. So
okay.
Yeah, when they fight, it's kind of got this cell shading kind of thing. I think all the games are like this, but when they fight, they have this kind of funny like electricity that kind of shoots between their eyes, like they're getting mad at each other, and then they just beat each other up. It's like kind of a beat 'em up action game. But Salamander Factory, I don't know how involved they were with this series, but I know that they did this one. They did some other stuff for like Super Robot Wars Alpha, stuff like that, and The company mainly produced game audio, but they also did commercial music and BGM for drama, stuff like that. Again, like I said, they were established in 1999, but they were basically from 2017 by former Studio Cliché Naofumi Tsurayama and Takuya Hanoka, which was another publishing house that did some music work for Japanese TV shows, variety, stuff like that. You probably have heard them, but they've been doing like porting from iOS stuff to apps,
sure,
just all sorts of stuff. 2017, their website went away, and looks like they just kind of dissipated. And that was that.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of them went on to other production studios. Like that kind of freelance work is always going to be in demand. People need music for their games or commercials or other projects. So,
or toothbrushing products.
Well, you know, they are definitely commercials for toothpaste still, so probably. Harold Hardtooth does not make an appearance musically in this one. Yeah. There were not 6 of those games, as far as I know.
Oh, unfortunately. It's too bad. We got to bring him back. All right, man. You got your last track, and then we're going to wrap up here. What's up?
Yeah, so I think everything up to this point has been Japanese composers. So I got one American in here. This is from Leisure Suit Larry 6, Shape Up or Slip Out, composed by Dan Keller. And the track is called, I think this is actually a visual pun, La Costalada.
Let's take a listen.
That was La Costalada, or La Costalada, from Leisure Suit Larry 6, composed by Dan Keller and released in 1993. I figured this game was going to come up at some point or another. I actually, before we go, this is kind of a bit of a cheat. People that know the Leisure Suit Larry series know that this isn't actually the 6th game. It's actually the 5th game. There's a semi-infamous joke that they never released Leisure Suit Larry 4. They just skipped it and went straight to 5. And then they're like, let's just go with it as a joke. I mean, the whole series is very punny and jokey like that. So it's just the 6th game is actually number 7, but who's counting?
Yeah, whatever.
It's got 6 in the title, so there you go.
Close enough. it's as much of a joke as this episode is.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah, Leisure Suit Larry. I was never really a big fan of the games. I didn't think they were. I mean, they were kind of funny and stuff, but like, once you play one, you kind of played them all.
Yeah, just about. I played the first one, and I think I got my fill after that.
Yeah. At first, I remember like, kids were like talking like, "Oh man, Leisure Suit Larry, it's like adult, da 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 da." It's like so tame to like today's standards, like so tame. So
it's like dad jokes. The game. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Everything is pretty PG most of the time, and even the other stuff is like, I don't know. It never really gets beyond
PG-13.
Yeah, barely. Yeah.
Well, great way to end the show, Gene, on the Leisure Suit Larry track. No, it was a cool track. I like it. Tell us a little bit about Heller.
Yeah, sure. Dan Keller worked at Sierra. Looks like the credits I could find have him starting at around 90, 91. His biggest games are going to be Space Quest 6.
Which is funny because I almost played a track from Space Quest 6.
I didn't find anything in there that I really wanted to play, so I was kind of...
There's a few good ones.
Police Quest SWAT, King's Quest 7, Torrens Passage. He also has some additional minor credits on my favorite, and yours, I think, Gabriel Knight, the first one. And some work on Police Quest 4, Freddy Farkas, Eco Quest 2. He was the main composer. That's a lesser known game, but like kind of that middle period of Sierra before they went into pure publishing mode. They were still making a lot of original games, but some pretty notable stuff in there.
I think that at that point they were just banking on their previous stuff, right? Because these are all games like that are already like the fourth installment through like the sixth installment. There's nothing really like. Other than Gabriel Knight, of course, there's not really a lot of new IP coming out of them.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, Torrens Passage was original, but I think that was kind of like, I don't know, has a bit of a Don Bluth animation style look to it. Black Cauldron, Princess, what is it called? Dragon's Lair. Dragon's Lair. Yeah.
Dragon's Lair. Dragon's Lair.
And of course, lots of movies and things like that. So it's got that sort of style to it, which was popular around the mid-90s.
Cool.
Yeah, not much else to say. I mean, his music is very like fun and playful, but not like super crazy awesome. But I thought it was a good way to end the show, bring the energy down a little bit more, chilled out.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, so I think it's time to wrap up, man. Today we had our kind of like our little 6th year hurrah, I guess. Just like everything's going good. We are still here. 6 years, probably for another 6 years. So. Anything else before we wrap up here?
Not from me, other than we've got some cool guests on the horizon, and as the shows come out.
Yeah, we've got a few lined up. Yeah. We've been doing this show for 6 years, and, like we've had a few breaks in the last, this year, this mess of a year. But, the fact that we're 6 years in, we're still very passionate about game audio and doing the show. If we take a break here and there, like, it doesn't mean we're going away. So I think we're kind of tapped out of breaks, and we just want to get back into our show because this is one of the few like normalcies left right now. So
yeah, we're really excited to get back into it. We've got some great shows coming up. We're fired up. We're all about getting back to our regular schedule and putting out some great content, new games, old games, anything in between.
Yeah, we got some great guests lined up too. So. Now we're definitely on the hook for some stuff. But thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to join us on Discord, you can go to pixelatedaudio.com. We have a link there. If you want to leave us a review on iTunes, that's always appreciated. And give us suggestions, send us an email, whatever you like. Let us know, what you're listening to while you're staying at home all the time. Like there's plenty of game music to be listened to during this time. And nobody around the office is going to complain, right? Unless it's like your kids or your spouse or significant other. So let us know. And thanks for listening. We'll see you back in a few weeks for the next episode.